Yo, my peeps, what's up? Today's the last lecture video for Unit 6, and it's going to be a short one, so I figured I'd use some time to do some test review as well, and then we'll talk about energy conservation. So let's give this question a shot. Which of the following is considered an advantage of using nuclear energy? Correct. There's no CO2 emitted from the fission reaction. CO2 can be emitted when you're mining uranium or building the power plant, but not from the reaction itself. Nuclear waste is generated. Uranium is not unlimited. Nuclear power plants are expensive, and there is a lot of thermal pollution, so A through D do not work. Let's give this half-life question a shot. So if the half-life of this element is 30 years, and 90 years go by, well, 90 divided by 30 is 3 half-lives, so all we got to do is cut the starting mass in half 3 times. Cut it in half once, in half twice, and half a third time to get 0.125 grams. Which of the following is the most practical solution to maximizing energy production at wind farms while minimizing the risk to wildlife? Well, the risk to wildlife is that they might collide, birds and bats might collide with the wind turbines themselves, so you can turn them off when there is lots of migration going on. Let's try this next one. Which of the following is a drawback to using biofuels such as ethanol as a fuel source? C, that's correct. The energy return on investment is low, which means that you have to put a lot of energy in to produce and process the food or the fuel, and then which reduces the output ultimately. And let's try this one. A major limitation of using photovoltaic cells to generate electricity is that they don't provide as much electricity on cloudy days. They're limited by the solar intensity at the time. Okay, so let's move on to the last topic after those questions of the unit. We've been talking about energy, where it's found, how it's harnessed, the different types, and what we use energy for. Let's talk about how we can conserve energy. So first of all, renewable energy is not energy conservation. If I asked you, hey, how can you conserve energy around the house? And you said, build a wind turbine, you'd actually be wrong, because renewable energy changes where you get your energy from, but it doesn't necessarily change how much energy you're using. Whereas energy conservation is a focus on using less energy, right? By carpooling, or walking to work, or shutting the lights off, or turning off the water while you brush your teeth, or whatever. Energy efficiency is another version where you can install appliances that are more efficient in the way that they use energy. So I just want to make that abundantly clear. Putting in wind turbines and solar panels doesn't make you energy conservative. It just changes where you get your energy from. So conservation and energy efficiency go hand in hand, as you can see on this diagram. Conservation is finding ways to use less energy, and energy efficiency is doing the same amount of work for less amount of energy. So if you look at different modes of transportation, you can see things like the metro and the electric scooter are the most efficient, whereas things like sports cars and airplanes are the least efficient, requiring the most amount of energy used per meter squared per person. Things like electric cars are a lot lower, and something like walking is actually pretty efficient compared to something like an airplane, but it's actually inefficient compared to something like biking or taking a scooter. There's a lot the government can do to encourage conservation, and you should be familiar with these. They're good to have in your back pocket if an FRQ asks you a question like this. One, you could improve or increase public transportation. You could tax the use of oil or electricity or natural gas. Some people refer to this as a fuel tax. You could offer tax credits for people who retrofit their home, install more efficient heating systems, install new appliances, put new insulation in. Or you could run educational campaigns or PSAs. This is not an exhaustive list. This is just to show you 4 different things that the government could do to encourage people to conserve energy in their homes. Another thing some governments do is they have a tiered rate system, which is like if you use X amount of electricity, you pay a certain rate, but if you go above that amount of electricity, you have to pay a higher rate. So if you're using more electricity, you have to pay more for that extra bit of electricity you're using. And this helps incentivize people to use less electricity because it will save them exponential amounts of money. Additionally, taking into consideration electricity usage especially when it comes to solar panels, is this idea of peak demand, certain times of the day or even the year where electricity prices will be higher, tends to be higher outside the work hours when people are actually home. You can see something like this too if you look at like internet traffic. It's a similar sort of thing where it peaks, rises, and falls with as the day goes on. The system that you set up for electricity needs to be prepared for the demand. You need to be able to meet the demand when it comes, otherwise you can have brownouts or blackouts, which is just when either you lose partial power in a brownout or a complete power in a blackout. So conservation is, like I said, all about using less energy. And in the Kilowatt Lab, we explored a bunch of different devices, and we found that the ones that use the most energy are ones that heated things or cooled things. The hair dryer, the microwave, the toaster, and the hot plate. Most of the electricity we use is used on heating and cooling. So if we want to have an impact on energy conservation, this is what we should target, because having a small impact on this is going to be actually substantial compared to having a small impact on electronic uses. So yeah, switching to LED lights is great, but if you can install more efficient heating and cooling, you're doing even better. So that comes down to wasting less energy. A lot of the energy in the ES is wasted. It's usually given off as heat. So one of the ways we can prevent that is with insulation, putting that in your walls, the roof, the windows, and the doors. Insulation in the walls, you may have seen this pink stuff before. It's made of fiberglass. You could also blow in insulation. You can make foam. You can even do with hay bales. That's just to help trap the temperature. Keep the warm air in the winter or the cool air in the summer. So that way you have to spend less money to heat or cool your home. It's like having the air conditioner on with the windows open. You're wasting all of that energy. Insulation makes it like not only are you closing the windows, but you're sealing up the walls super tight as well. Speaking of windows, you can actually buy special types of windows that have 3 panes, and inside, in between the panes, is argon or krypton gas and noble gas, which helps trap heat or temperature really well. Additionally, in the wintertime, you may have seen people put covers up over their windows, almost like it looks like saran wrap. That just helps trap the heat in. Because if you go over to your window in the winter, you might find it's colder over there. It's kind of drafty. So helping reduce energy loss through the windows can make a big difference. Some bad appliances. These are appliances that produce heat and also don't direct the heat. Right? So something like a curling iron is just emanating heat off. It's not directing it in a specific area or it's not contained like an oven or a microwave where the heat is contained and you can save it and use it. So a lot of these tend to waste a lot of energy. Let's do some more math practice and credit to fellow APES teacher Megan Thaler for making these problems. So you've got an air conditioner. The Energy Star brand, which is a more efficient brand of air conditioner, energy efficient, is $300, and the standard non-Energy Star is $200. They have the same cooling capacity, but the Energy Star costs 5 cents less to run per hour. So if you run it for 12 hours a day, how long is it going to take to recover the cost of buying the more expensive one? Just give that a shot. Okay, so what you need to do is calculate the cost of the regular one and the energy efficient one, right? So if we have the Energy Star one, it's going to save us 5 cents an hour. If we're running for 12 hours a day, that's 60 cents a day. And the difference between these two is $100. So 100 divided by 60 is 167 days. So it'll pay itself off in half a year. You're probably not using an air conditioner for that long, so it might take 2 years because you're only using it probably 3 months of the year, not 6. Let's try another problem. You want to buy a flat screen TV. Electricity costs 15 cents per kilowatt hour, and you watch 4 hours of TV a day. The non-Energy Star model uses half a kilowatt. So how much is it going to cost you to run this TV for a whole year? Well, it's 15 cents per kilowatt hour. You're using half a kilowatt for 4 hours a day, so that's 2 kilowatt hours. 365 days a year comes out to $109.50. Write this number down. You're going to need it in the next problem. Okay, so let's now look at the Energy Star model of that television, which uses 40% of the amount of electricity as the regular one. So how much money are you going to save over 5 years if you buy the Energy Star model? Well, over 5 years, a regular model is going to cost us $547.50, and 40% of that is $219. So we are going to save that difference. $547.50 minus $219 saves us $328.50 over 5 years. Geez, you could buy another TV at that rate. 2 TVs right next to each other. That sounds pretty cool if you ask me. So that was a bunch of math. In addition to energy conservation in terms of insulation, we also spend a lot of energy on not just heating and cooling, but transportation. So finding ways to be more conservative with the way we use energy in transportation. Carpooling is a big one, right? Especially in high school, you can do that a lot. Taking public transportation, taking the railroad, the subway, electric cars are better than regular cars, combustion cars. Biking, walking, skiing, Lime scooters, whatever. Anything you can to reduce the amount of energy you use on transportation is going to have an impact. Every penny counts, so to speak. And electric cars are great, but we also need to, I kind of blocked this out here, whoops. We also need to increase the fuel efficiency of combustion-based cars that run on gasoline. Increasing the fuel efficiency will have a big difference on those cars and the amount of energy they use. We know from the second law of thermodynamics, of all the gasoline that we put in the car, a lot of it is lost as heat and friction, and some of it actually for coolant for the AC. Only about 25%, if your car is really efficient, goes towards moving the car forward. A lot of that energy is lost. So if we can increase this green number here, we'll make the car more efficient and reduce energy waste. Additionally, electric vehicles are on the rise, obviously, and they can have a substantial impact on electricity use. Here's a cool example of a Swiss dump truck. It's the largest electric vehicle in the world, and it uses energy as it goes up the hill, and then as it rolls down the hill, the turning of the wheels helps recharge the batteries through regenerative braking, which is pretty cool. But electric cars, this is a graph from the New York Times showing the cost over a long period of time. I think it's 5 years. Average cost per month of different vehicles. Electric cars tend to be the cheapest over owning them for their lifetime, right? They might be more expensive initially, but you'll save money on fuel costs, and you're also going to have lower emissions, which is the y-axis here. Compared to hybrid cars are a little bit higher overall, a wider range of cost and a median level of emissions, whereas regular combustion cars powered by gas can be very cheap to very expensive and can produce a medium amount to a large amount of CO2 emissions. So with an electric car, electric car is only, the benefit of electric car is you get to choose where your electricity comes from. If you've got a combustion car, your fuel is a fossil fuel. There's no way to get around that, right? But with an electric car, your fuel is electricity, and where you get that electricity can make a difference. Now, if most of your electricity comes from a coal-fired power plant, it's actually probably worse than burning gasoline. But if you're getting electricity, some from nuclear, some from natural gas, some from renewables, and maybe a little bit from coal, that's going to have a lower impact in terms of the emissions and the energy costs, because you're not using just fossil fuels to power your car, you're also using other things like renewable energy and nuclear energy. So that's the thing with an electric car, is that it depends on where your electricity is coming from. Okay, well that's pretty much it. I know it's a hodgepodge of a video, but that's the last one for this unit. So I'll see you next time, and bring your questions to class. Adios.